Hello, and welcome to Shelf Life, where each month I share the best in young adult literature for teens, teachers, and adults of all ages. I'm your host, Patricia Emerson, and this edition explores our fears, the things that go bump in the night, made all the more powerful because they feel all too real. At 12:07, just after midnight, the monster first appears in Connor's bedroom. The menacing shape of a giant yew tree emits a human voice. The voice tells Connor that he has heard him call, has come for him. This is a nightmare, Connor knows, but the next morning his bedroom floor is littered with the spiky leaves that the yew tree has left behind. Connor's days are filled with another kind of terror. His mother is sick. It's cancer, and Connor's doing the best he can to be a good son, but she doesn't seem to be getting any better. Add to this the daily torment from some of the kids at school, and Connor's life seems like one long nightmare. 12:07. Of course it was. He listened hard into the silence, but nothing happened. He didn't hear his name. He didn't hear the creak of wood. Maybe it wasn't going to come tonight. Feeling vaguely angry, Connor got up and went into the kitchen. He looked out of the window. The monster was standing in his backyard. "What took you so long?" it asked. And the monster continues to visit. Why? And what can Connor do? Patrick Ness has created an all-too-real character in Connor, haunted night and day by forces beyond his control. Connor must face what he believes wants to destroy him. Will he find the strength he needs? Read A Monster Calls. Gareth Hines' graphic text features a collection of Edgar Allan Poe's dark and mysterious stories and poems. He introduces some of Poe's recurring themes: death, disease, darkness, and insanity, and supports these disturbing tales with art that perfectly complements Poe's ominous mood. Whether it's in the plotted revenge of the cask of Amontillado, the lost love of Annabel Lee, or the murderer gone mad in the telltale heart, Hines sets us inside the twisted minds and damaged souls of Poe's characters. The book concludes with a drawing of Poe's gravesite and says, Poe died in 1849 under mysterious circumstances. He was found on the streets of Baltimore dazed and incoherent, far from his home, wearing clothes that were not his own. He was taken to Washington University Hospital, where he died a few days later without ever regaining full lucidity, leaving both the exact cause of his death and the explanation for its bizarre circumstances unknown. Poe's legacy lives on, and Gareth Hines' art does him justice. Jess is sent to live with a father she barely knows in the wake of a tragedy. She finds herself in the middle of Canadian wilderness, isolated and completely unfamiliar, both with him and the environment. She decides that returning to civilization is a must and strikes a bargain with her dad. 1 year, that's what she'll give him. By the time next summer comes, she'll be gone. Then a plane lands, and her father is murdered while she watches, safely hidden, as he has told her to remain. The men bury her father in a crate and burn his small cabin to the ground. She overhears them say that they'll return in the spring. If she can survive, and that's a big if, for winter will soon arrive, she'll need their plane to escape. She'll need a plan. But first, she'll have to use everything he's taught her about survival in the brief time before he was murdered. And so I always come back to one thing, one reason to keep going, to beat the winter, one reason to survive the cold, the hunger, the loneliness, revenge. I wake to sunlight and sit up startled. I've slept in. I never sleep in. But the sun is streaming through the window. It's late and the wind is howling. Except that's not the wind. The wind stopped long ago. That's an engine. That's a plane. They're here. First, Maddie was murdered, and the investigation in the small town of Cold Creek, Colorado, led nowhere. Now her 19-year-old sister, Sadie Hunter, has gone missing. The only one who seems to care is the girl's neighbor, Maybeth Foster, because she can't take one more dead girl, especially when she has supported the girls after their mother disappeared. Maybeth contacts West McCrae, a radio show producer who aired the story of Maddie's death, and asks him to find out what has happened to Sadie. In our last episode, I introduced you to the two girls at the center of this podcast, Maddie Southern and Sadie Hunter. Maddie was murdered, her body left just outside her hometown of Cold Creek, Colorado. Sadie is missing and her car found abandoned hundreds of miles away with all her personal belongings still inside it. The girl's surrogate grandmother, Maybeth Foster, has enlisted my help in finding Sadie and bringing her home. Although he is initially reluctant, as he uncovers secrets behind Sadie's disappearance, West himself becomes ensnared in the web of mystery surrounding the girls. Summers alternates storytelling between scripts of the podcast and as the search unfolds, and Sadie's own fierce and compelling voice. This dark novel is for mature readers. It tackles tough subject matter made all the more frightening because it exists in fact. Sadie's journey will haunt you. When only 5 of the 6 kindergartners who were taken return after 11 years to the very school playground from which they mysteriously disappeared, the town is stunned. To make matters worse, not one of the 5 remembers anything about time in captivity. That includes what has happened to the still missing Max. This lack of answers puts these young adults under suspicion. How can they not remember? Scarlett and Lucas, central characters, wonder the same thing. They return to the middle of lives that have been lived without them, devoid of their own histories. They are desperate to fill that void with recollection. But this seems impossible, for while they begin to experience flashes, isolated images, no coherent story emerges. How will they fill their empty pasts? False memories are actually pretty easy to create. Like if your brother told you that when you were kids you dropped your ice cream cone and cried so hard that the woman in the shop gave you a new one, you'd believe that it happened, even if you didn't remember it. And then eventually you'd tell the story as your own and even add details like what flavor of ice cream it was and what the weather was like. This stunning story, told in 3 alternating viewpoints, is as much a mystery as it is an exploration of who we are without our memories. Scarlett and Lucas provide the returned perspective, and Avery, sister to the still missing Max, the much-needed view of family left behind. This should be read and passed along. We are all dust. All dying, all losing, all forgetting. We are all leaving all the time. The voice of Papa's radio. Suspected Islamist militants have raided a Nigerian village and murdered dozens, according to witnesses. The gunmen reportedly round up a group of men in Izge village and shot them before going from door to door, killing anyone they found. Papa's in the bathroom. The splashing water ceases. Mama's in the kitchen. The scraping of spoon against pot halts. I am on the veranda. We are frozen, all of us, by the voice on Papa's radio. Boko Haram is in Izge. Boko Haram threatens the entire region of northern Nigeria. It is 2014, and the unnamed protagonist in this novel anticipates the news that she has received a scholarship to attend university. This dream has driven her to excellence in school, despite the pressure on girls who marry to abandon education. The very name Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. However, for her, identified as Yata, my daughter, both her family and her community stand in support. They may not have much, may depend upon the spirits who bring rain and consider the baobab the tree of life, but in her village there is an abundance of love and acceptance. Christian and Muslim faiths coexist in peace. Boko Haram, however, is approaching, and when the soldiers arrive, Yata is among the girls who are abducted. As captives taken to the Zambiza forest, the young girls experience torture and deprivation in the attempt of Boko Haram to radicalize them. Even if they are returned, their ordeal will never truly end. Told in brief poetic chapters, a series of chronological vignettes, Nuabani reveals the depth of her research and personal connection to the stories of these young girls. This is a human story of real-life terror and a must-read for everyone. Which stories have you read that have given you chills and remain with you, haunting? Let me know in the comments below. See you again next time.